It's put up or shut up time. The SEC spring meetings down in Destin, Florida, just days away. Are we finally going to have a future schedule resolution for football in the SEC? A lot of talk here in the last couple of days. We'll reset that topic, give you my thoughts on who I think Tennessee's 3 permanent opponents will be. That's more football talk here on a Thursday. Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, welcome back into it. Locked On Vols, your Thursday edition of the show. I'm Eric Kane, @_Kaner on Twitter, @LockedOnVols. That's where you can always find me and the show. Appreciate you guys being here. Real quick, apologies for the audio on the podcast yesterday. Yeah, this thing's on today. My mic was plugged in. I had some type of setting that needed to be turned on that wasn't turned on. So I know that was just brutal. So I do apologize. Thankfully, we're sounding, at least, to the ears, we're sounding a little bit better today. Maybe I'm, not making any sense, but at least we're sounding a little bit better today. Shout out everydayers. Thanks so much for coming back today. If you want to be an everydayer, come back tomorrow. We'll let you know all about it. Subscribe to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast. We do have a lot to get into, tons of football content to get into. Want to reset the SEC scheduling topic because there's been a lot of chatter lately about staying at 8 games and how I think that's just utterly stupid. So we'll discuss that just a little bit and revisit the 3 permanent opponents for Tennessee potential on what could be out there. In segment 2, this was a Twitter Tuesday question inspired by Braden. He wanted to know the Mount Rushmore of Tennessee football games. I'm going to give you mine, and I want you to give me yours as well, @_Kaner and Locked On Vols. And then in segment 3, CBS Sports put out the 100 things, 100 days away from college football. That was yesterday. Tennessee, a couple of those numbers, if you will. I'll explain more on that here in a moment. But a lot of good stuff there. Really, really intriguing stuff. Really, really fun stuff. We'll get into that in segment number 3. Okay, so SEC future football schedule. In 2024, Tennessee, or the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, is going to go from 14 teams to 16 teams. So Oklahoma's coming in and Texas is coming in. The thought, the thought for a long time was that you are going to scrap divisions, you're going to go to a 9-game conference schedule, and you are essentially going to play 3 opponents every single year, known as the 3 permanent opponents. And then the rest of your SEC schedule will be a rotation of 6 teams, so the 3-6 model. That's been the most popular. That's been kind of the expected result for months upon months upon months. And I still do believe that this is going to be the expected outcome. I do. And I'll get to that in a moment. The other option, and the one that you're hearing a little bit more chatter about here lately from some presidents of these programs in the Southeastern Conference, presidents of universities, want to remain at an 8-game schedule. That's what Tennessee plays right now. That's what the Southeastern Conference is. It is an 8-game schedule, but you would go a 1-7 model, meaning you would play 1 opponent every single year, no matter what, and then every year you would rotate 7 SEC teams on both sides. You are playing every single program in the Southeastern Conference once every 2 years, and you will visit every venue in the Southeastern Conference if you're in college for 4 years. At least one time. So that's what I like. But on those 2 things, you're scrapping divisions essentially, and that's kind of the expected layout of what's to come for the Southeastern Conference. We'll see. There could be some tweaks in there, sure, and all that good stuff. But I think that it's still going to be the 3-6 model. I think that the SEC is going to go to the 9-game conference schedule, and here's why. ESPN is the TV rights, the partner with the Southeastern Conference. You think ESPN would have re-upped and gave, the Southeastern Conference and its, and its member institutions all this money, all this revenue share that is north of $70 million if they were not going to get another conference game? I don't think so. That's first and foremost. Number 2, the Big Ten is already playing 9 conference games. So why on earth, as the SEC, are you not playing 9 conference games? That's number 2. Number 3, you are expanding your conference. You are adding more teams to your conference. Therefore, you should play more conference games. That's number 3. And number 4, You are expanding the college football playoffs in 2024. You are going from 4 teams to 12 teams, essentially meaning, I don't want to devalue the regular season, but a loss here or there in the regular season, if you are a top program in the country, it is not going to derail you. You will still be in the college football playoff. So the fact that you're adding to the conference, the fact that another Power 5 conference is already doing it, the fact that ESPN is giving you $70+ million per member institution at the Southeastern Conference, and the fact that it is an expanded playoff in 2 years, why on earth would you sit back and only want to do an 8-game conference slate? You are the Southeastern Conference. You pump your chest and you say it just means more about everything. Well, back up your freaking words here. It just means more. Play a 9th conference game. Alabama, you the big bad guy on campus. Georgia, back-to-back national titles. Tennessee, you're the upcomer. LSU, history-rich program. I mean, all these programs in the Southeastern Conference. You want to be the bad boy? You want to say you're one of the best teams in the country? Then by golly, back your words on it. Just meaning more, right? The presidents will vote on this. If it is a tie 8-8, Greg Sankey, I believe, gets the tiebreaker. Obviously, he is the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. There was some talk, there were some rumblings that some of the presidents of some of the schools in the Southeastern Conference want to remain at 8 games, citing, equality issues, citing competitive advantage, all that type of stuff. I just don't quite understand that mindset. If you are Vanderbilt, if you are Mississippi State, and sure, they bring a lot in a number of different sports. Most notably, those two programs have those two universities have great baseball programs. Women's basketball from Mississippi State is up there. Track and field for both. I mean, it's not just football, but as we know, football keeps the lights on, right? But if you're a Mississippi State, if you're a Vanderbilt, if you're one of the considered lower level, lower tier Southeastern Conference teams, you're hitching your wagon to that of the SEC, and you're getting paid $72 million a year just to be a part of the Southeastern Conference and to play your football games on ESPN and the SEC network. Okay? Get over yourself. This is not coaches making the decision. This is not athletic directors making the decision. These are university presidents who are voting on it. Sure, they'll be influenced by those factors, but there are some university presidents who want to stay at 8 games. It'll be easier to get to bowl eligibility. It'll be easier to get to these different, milestones throughout the season if you didn't have to play another conference game. I don't get that mindset. Again, you are in the Southeastern Conference. You have the best football in all the country, top to bottom. I just don't quite get that. And again, if you lose 2 games and you are Georgia, you are Alabama, you are LSU, maybe you're Tennessee, you will still get in the college football playoffs with 2 losses. LSU lost 3 before the SEC championship game. LSU had 3 losses. LSU would have been in the college football playoff game or playoffs with 3 losses this past year. So it just kind of is what it is. That's all my opinion. It just kind of is what it is. So I don't quite get that mindset. Again, it just means more, right? We'll prove it. So we will see. The SEC spring meetings coming up in Destin, Florida. That's been the expected timeline for an announcement of the 2024 schedule and beyond. The expectation is it will go to a 3-6 model, 9 conference games, no divisions. It is not set in stone. The other alternative would be a 1-7 model, remain at 8 games, 1 permanent opponent, 7 rotating opponents every single year. I think it would be really embarrassing. Closing arguments here in segment 1. I think it would be really, really embarrassing if you're the Southeastern Conference and you sit there and you vote to remain at 8 games. I think it would be really, really embarrassing. So we will see. That's kind of been the chatter here lately. I'm not talking like it's firm, it's set in stone or anything, but there's been more and more. Paul Feinbaum mentioned it the other day about how he's hearing that 8 games is kind of, what people want now, and, some other people have been mentioning that as well. I don't see it. We'll see what happens, but I'm bringing that up, kind of resetting, because maybe there'll be a resolution by, this time next week. Real quick before we hit the break, I meant to bring this up earlier, but we talked about it before. If there's a 3-6 model, who do you want Tennessee's 3 opponents to be? You can already mark it down, put it in the bank. It's going to be Vanderbilt and Alabama is your 1-2 or 2-1, however you want to phrase it. Who's that 3rd one? How many rivalries will the Southeastern Conference choose to preserve? Are they going to preserve the Border Bowl, the Battle of the Beer Barrel with Tennessee, Kentucky? What about Tennessee and Florida? It's been a heated rivalry dating back to 1992. You want to go back? You used to play Auburn well before that. What's what's the direction the Southeastern Conference is going to go in? I don't know. We'll see. Kind of the conversation and kind of the trendy team to be paired with Tennessee, kind of in that group would be South Carolina. There's nothing about that gets me excited. That's just my opinion. So I'd love for it to be Kentucky for sure. And if it is Kentucky, if you're Tennessee, you say SEC, thank you very much. On with my business, because Vanderbilt's going to be in the bottom, Kentucky's going to be in the middle, and Alabama's at the top right now, and that's pretty fair and pretty equal if you ask me. When we come back, top 4 games, Tennessee football history, a great Twitter Tuesday question. That was from Braden. We are going to discuss that when we come back right here on Locked On Vols. Hey guys, introduce you to a new sponsor of the show and of the network yesterday. I'm gonna bring it up again. It's Birddogs. Fit, comfort, and versatility. They've got a little bit of everything. That's what they pride themselves on. Their clothing, their shirts, their shorts, their pants. A look that is better for you and brings out your features, comforts, stretchy fabric, making everything just the perfect fit for you, for your shorts and your pants, and versatility. What you can do with it, you can go to meetings, you can go to work with it, you can go play golf in them, you can go sightseeing in them. I mean, whatever the case is, Birddogs has got you covered. Again, I mentioned I was down at Hoover, Alabama for just one day this past week, but I packed 2 pairs, a pair of pants and some shorts, Birddogs, because I knew I'd be at the stadium, I'd be at the Hoover Met all day long, and then I'd be going and maybe getting a few drinks with the guys, for the boys, or maybe going out to dinner and then coming back and doing the show, or maybe vice versa, maybe not in that order. Regardless, I knew that they were going to be long days ahead, and I wanted to look nice, I wanted to look presentable and professional, but I wanted to be comfortable. And Birddog checks those boxes for me, and it can do it for you as well. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege, and when you enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, they're going to throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti-style tumbler with every single order. I got mine in the mail. I need to bring it on the show here in a moment, but it's really, really good. Had my coffee in it just the other day. That is Locked On College. That's the promo code Locked On College when you go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege to place your order. And when you do that, a free custom Birddogs Yeti-style tumbler with every single order. That is birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. All right, guys, welcome back into your Thursday edition of the show. I am Eric Kane. You can always hit me up on Twitter @_Kaner and @LockedOnVols. Shout out Everydayers, one of those Everydayers. He listens every single day. His name is Braden, and he chimed in for Twitter Tuesday earlier this week, and he wanted to know what was what games of Tennessee football history would be on my Mount Rushmore. Essentially, my favorite Tennessee games or best Tennessee football games of all time. You can kind of make it your own, right? I kind of made it the best Tennessee football games ever. Not necessarily in my lifetime, but just kind of ones that stick out to me. There are a whole lot more that could be on my Mount Rushmore, and I'm sure yours as well. My Mount Rushmore is likely going to look different from your Mount Rushmore. Just kind of is. I've got a couple oldies, got a couple recents, but still, it's really, really unique, and it's a great question that Braden had, and I wanted to save it and make a segment out of it. And that's what we're going to do here in segment number 2. So shout out, Braden. Appreciate that. This is in no particular order, except I will say the first one is. So having said that, the first one I say is the most important, but after that, it's really in no specific order. That's what a Mount Rushmore is, right? In no specific order. But the first one that I will talk about, the first game in Tennessee football history that is on my Mount Rushmore, is 100% the national championship game. It was January 4th, 1999. Tennessee won over Florida State by the final score of 23-16. It had been close to 50 years since Tennessee was considered a unanimous national champion, and went into that game 12-0. SEC champions, top-ranked team, but was considered the underdog against Florida State. T. Martin, Peerless Price, just such that magical season. They capped it off in a year where everybody was saying it was going to be rebuilding, right? Peyton's gone. It's going to be a rebuilding year, and Tennessee and T. Martin capped it off with a win in the national championship. Capping the 98 season was actually the 4th day of 1999 over Florida State, 23-16. That is number 1 on the Mount Rushmore, and I believe that would likely be number 1 on yours as well. The second game that I'm going to highlight here is one that is very, very recent, right? And we could talk about it until the end of time, and I think it's going to stand. Tennessee's win over Alabama this past football season, 52-49. It broke a streak of 16 straight victories for the Crimson Tide. It was Tennessee, or Alabama was number 3 at the time, I believe. And just the way that game happened, right? I mean, Tennessee jumps out to a 2-touchdown lead early in the first half. Alabama comes back. Tennessee misses an extra point. Alabama takes the lead by 1 point, kicking a field goal or kicking an extra point. Tennessee gets another lead, and then they just hand the football to Dallas Turner, and he scoops and scores and goes in from 11 yards out to take the lead, and you're like, oh no, here it is. Tennessee's going to lose again, and Tennessee comes back. We know about that final drive. We know about the 5th touchdown catch from Jalen Hyatt, and then we know about the missed field goal from Alabama, and then Tennessee coming back on that last drive. Big throw and catch to Ramel Keaton. Big throw and catch by Brew McCoy, Chase McGrath, the screwball, the knuckleball. It goes through, and then, all hell breaks loose on Neyland Stadium. There were cigars, there were cigarettes, there were a lot of other things on that field. I'm telling you, I was down there. But it was quite the party. That will forever be something that I will never forget. That will be the best moment I've ever been a part of in Tennessee football. And until Tennessee wins probably a national championship, that might not ever be, dethroned, for me, at least that I was a part of. I was covering that game. So that is up there for me 100%. Of course, I mean, Jalen Hyatt, what a phenomenal game. 6 targets, 5 catches, 207 yards, 5 touchdowns. Doubled his touchdown total in that game alone, put himself on the map for All-Americans and the Blitnikoff, which he went ahead and, won those consensusly. Is that a word? Consensusly? I don't think so. But that game has got to be up there for me for sure. The third game that I want to highlight, Sugar Balls, baby. It's the Sugar Balls, right? I mean, you got to go all the way back to, let's see here, what was it? Was it 1986? Yeah. So you got to go back to January 1st, 1986, Tennessee 35, Miami 7 in New Orleans, and that is what pinned Tennessee as the Sugar Vols. See, Miami was top 5 in the country. Think that they were number 2. They were going through that first really big dynasty in the last 20 years at the time. Of course, they went on another one there in the 90s. And, they came into New Orleans ready to roll, right? And trying to have a share of the national championship with a victory over Tennessee in the Superdome. But Tennessee fans showed out. They took over that stadium, and they just ran Miami, out of the park. 35 unanswered points on their way to an upset. Jeff Powell had a 60-yard touchdown run in the game, one of the most memorable plays in Tennessee football history. Shout out Saturday Down South for reminding me about this game. They did an article recently about some of the greater games in Tennessee history, and this made their list as well. So the Sugar Vols, right? 1986, January 1st, 35 unanswered points, allowing the first touchdown of the game, and then slamming the door shut, and Tennessee went off and just drilled the top-ranked Miami, or the number 2 Miami Hurricanes in that Sugar Bowl in the Superdome. So that would be on my list for sure, and I bet a lot of old-timers would have that one on there as well. And then speaking of another game that happened, a little bit ago, Miracle South Bend. How can you talk famous Tennessee games, most memorable Tennessee football games ever, without the Miracle at South Bend, right? No sirree. 35-34. Some of the most iconic John Ward calls came from some of these games, but this one specifically as well. Tennessee was down 31-7 on the road in South Bend, 1991. Down 31-7. Scored a quick touchdown right before the halftime, and then came back, took the lead, 35-34. Notre Dame lines up to kick a game-winning field goal. Tennessee blocks it, and there you go, right? Tennessee comes back. The Miracle at South Bend is what it was dubbed. Tennessee wins 35-34. So those are my 4 games that are on my Mount Rushmore for best Tennessee football games ever. Some that I wrote down that just made the cut. I mean, how in the world can you mention the 1998 National Championship game played on January 4th, 1999, without mentioning some of those games, those memorable games in 1998? The Arkansas game is 100% honorable mention. Billy Ratliff, the fumbling, stumbling, pick it up there of the Arkansas quarterback who shall not be named. That game's up there for sure. The Florida win in overtime that year. Jeff Hall kicking the field goal. If memory serves me correct, the Syracuse game that year, T. Martin had like a 24-24 in that game or something. Connected with, was a Peerless Price down the sideline on, I don't know, I can't remember a lot of plays in that game, but those couple of games in the 1998 season deserve to be mentioned for sure. And then also Tennessee knocking off number 1 Auburn, 1985, September 24th, 1985. Bo Jackson, who would go on and win the Heisman Trophy. Tennessee held him to just 80 yards on the game. Tennessee won 38-20. And that game was in Knoxville. Tennessee took down number 1 Auburn and Heisman Trophy eventual winner Bo Jackson. So those are some honorable mentions for me. But my 4 games are the Natty over Florida State, 23-16 Tennessee wins. It is the Alabama game this past year inside Neyland Stadium, 52-49. 35-7 over Miami in the Sugar Vols game back in January 1st, 1986, and 1991, the Miracle at South Bend. Those are my 4 games. What are yours? @_Caner, @LockedOnVols. I love this topic. Great stuff there from Braden. Really, really do appreciate you. We are now less than 100 days away until the start of the college football season. We have a really, really cool topic. CBS Sports put out their 100-day countdown. Tennessee's mentioned in a couple of those. I'll explain when we return right here on Locked On Vols. All right, guys, welcome back into your third segment, of a Thursday show, Locked On Vols. Eric Kane, @_Caner, @LockedOnVols. We continue on. It's been a really fun show so far. I kind of went ham talking about how if the SEC does not go to 9 games, it should be embarrassed. We'll see. I think it will, but there's been some chatter lately. Kind of just grind my gears a little bit, if you will. Did that in segment number 1. Segment 2, Mount Rushmore of Tennessee football games. We could have done a whole show on that, but it was really, really cool doing that here in segment number 2. And now in segment number 3, CBS Sports put this out on Tuesday, 100 days away from the start of college football season, and they had a tracker, 1 through 100, on things to be on the lookout for this football season. It's really, really cool. I love when they do this every single year. First couple of ones are big storylines. Number 1, Georgia in the quest for a three-peat. Tennessee shows up in a couple of these. Number 1, Georgia in a quest for a three-peat. Number 2, spotlight on Deion Sanders in Colorado. You know how we mentioned Athlon Sports? You know how we mentioned the countdown and all that good stuff yesterday about the preseason all-conference teams and all that? I mean, it's not just Athlon, but it's everybody's obsessed with Deion Sanders in Colorado. I understand it. I get it. It's popular. I get it. Hall of Famer. I get it. Primetime. I get it. But you would think that some of these national, I'm not signaling out Athlon or CBS Sports, you would think some of these national publications are beat writers for Colorado right now. It's ridiculous, and I'm sick and tired of seeing it. But anyway, that was a mini rant. Number 2, spotlight on Deion Sanders in Colorado. Number 3, pivot point for the high-profile coaches in year 2, like LSU, Brian Kelly, Billy Napier, some of these other highly regarded second-year coaches around the nation, Lincoln Riley, just to name a few. Number 4, on-field effects of the conference realignment, most notably welcoming in 4 teams to the Big 12, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. The next couple are bold predictions. Number 5, Pac-12 will have the best quarterback play in the country. Interesting. Top to bottom, okay. Caleb Williams, of course, reigning Heisman Trophy winner, but who else? Mike Penix Jr. of Washington, Cam Rising of Utah, Oregon Bo Nix. That's a conversation starter. I'll give him that. That's a conversation starter. Number 6, Ryan Day will snap his losing streak to Jim Harbaugh sooner or later, right? Number 7, Texas will lead the Big 12 with a conference championship. Wouldn't that be something? And then the next couple are burning questions. We're about to get into the first one for Tennessee. Next one, burning questions. Is Alabama's dynasty over? Interesting. That's number 8. Number 9, Tennessee stock is soaring, but it will hold. This is what they say about that. Quote, big wins can prove to be a transformational for coaches early on in their tenure, and last season's epic defeat of Alabama has thrust Josh Heupel and the Vols into the realm of lofty expectations. Heupel followed up an 11-win campaign with a top 10 finish and a strong recruiting class. Now projections for the future include competing for championships. Proving that Tennessee is more than a flash in the pan starts with a successful transition from Hendon Hooker to Joe Milton at quarterback and maintaining the offensive success that has defined much of Heupel's coaching career. All of Heupel's coaching career, I'll go ahead and say that. With five-star freshman Nico Iamaleava representing the title-contending future, the strong bridge season of 2023 can ensure that none of the momentum is lost from last year's season's success. I completely agree with all of that. That is a burning question from a national perspective, from an SEC perspective, and even locally here on the beat in Knoxville, Tennessee. Sustainability. Can Tennessee sustain? I'm talking about Joe Milton. What can you look like week after week after week after week? Tennessee, if you're a true power in this conference, if you're one of the best coaches in this conference, if you want to be, taken seriously like the big boys, of course, to get there, you got to win some championships. I get it, but what can you do to follow up a 10-win regular season? What can you do to follow up an 11-win season? 2023 is going to be a big year. I agree completely with all that. You go on now, and a couple more of these burning questions. Can Garrett Riley help Clemson get back to a national title competition? Are buyouts real? Talking about Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. Penn State is loaded up to make the run, but is there a path? Great stuff here. I'm just skimming over it. A lot of great detail work. It's a free article over at CBSSports.com. Then another section here is new faces, new places. They list a ton of new coaches and what they'll look like in their new respected spots. Most notably, Kenny Dillingham over at Arizona State, Hugh Freeze at Auburn, Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati, Tim Peck at Coastal Carolina, Deion Sanders at Colorado, yada, yada. You continue to go down, and so on and so forth. Liberty's got Jamie Chadwell, shout out to Anderson County, Jeff Brom at Louisville, so Mississippi State, Zach Arnett. Again, those are just some new coaches. The next tier, if you will, and most notably there are some tiers in here, national championship contenders. Tier 1. So we're going to learn on the national title odds at Caesar Sportsbook. That's what this article is using to set some of the tiers for national title race. Tier 1, Georgia, 11-5 odds. Alabama, 11-2 odds. Michigan, 8-1 odds. Ohio State, 17-2 odds. LSU, 12-1 odds. USC, 14-1 odds. Texas, 16-1 odds. Florida State, 16-1 odds. Clemson, 20-1 odds. Interesting. There's some teams in there that shouldn't be in there, but the tier 1 teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tier 1 teams. Tier 2 teams, the first one mentioned, Tennessee. Tennessee 25-1. That's what they say on this. Those 25-1 odds. Will Milton have a T. Martin guy after the guy title run? Judging by how things went against South Carolina at the end of the season, the big question here is whether the Vols can get enough stops on defense to navigate the annually difficult schedule. That sounds like a show in the future. Joe Milton, T. Martin, guy after the guy. I love that. It's a really, really good idea. Really, really good stuff here from CBS Sports. That'll be a show later on, but I will say the one difference is you went from Peyton to T. Martin, but you still had an elite, historic defense. Tennessee's defense was not as bad as everybody wants to try to make it out to be. I have shouted in this microphone. I've talked on this podcast about how Tennessee's defense was nowhere near as bad as everybody thought they were last year. And I brought stats to the ballpark and we played ball, with stats and facts. It's still nowhere close to, obviously, what that defense was. Just incredible. So that's the biggest difference. Some of those other teams in Tier 2, along with Tennessee's Penn State, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Oregon, Washington, Oklahoma, Utah, Wisconsin, Ole Miss. And then some of the better non-conference games are listed 56 through 75 on the top 100 countdown. I'm not going to list them all, but the first couple won Colorado at TCU, Florida, Utah, West Virginia, Penn State, North Carolina, South Carolina, yada, yada. Heisman Trophy contenders. Here we go, right? Again, they're using odds per Caesar Sportsbook. Caleb Williams, 9-2. Michael Penix Jr., 12-1. Drake May, 12-1. Jordan Travis, 12-1. Yada, yada. You continue to go on and on and on. And you get down to number 86 on the countdown, and there's Tennessee's quarterback, Joe Milton. Joe Milton, Tennessee quarterback, 18-1 odds to be the Heisman Trophy winner. And that will do it for Tennessee in the top 100 countdown as these Heisman odds go from number 76 to 100 on the top 100 countdown. Jalen Milroe, 40-1 odds to win the Heisman. Get a life. Ty Simpson, 30-1 odds to win the Heisman. Get real. Get absolutely real. Are you kidding me right now? Oh, geez. Fun stuff. All right. Good stuff there. We might dig into this a little bit more. 100 days out from kickoff. Some of the biggest storylines, burning questions, bold predictions. Good stuff there as always from CBS Sports. We are now 99 days away from the start of college football. Can't wait. It will be here before you know it. Fun show today. I think it's been a real good show. I think it's been a fun show. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Shout out to everydayers. If you want to be an everydayer, come back tomorrow. If you're listening, if you're watching right now and you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please do so. Just search Locked On Vols on YouTube. It helps me out a lot, so please subscribe there. Please subscribe or follow wherever you listen, wherever you get your listening podcast. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Odyssey app, wherever it is. That helps the show. That helps me continue to do the show. So thank you so much for that. We'll have a lot of good stuff to get into tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. This is Locked On Vols.